everybody and welcome back to Typical City. Rico Lewis, what a player. What a potential superstar we have in our midst. An incredible talent. But is he about to overtake Phil Foden? A player that is following the same path. Rico Lewis is along that same path. From local boy, Bury, similar to Foden, who's local from Stockport. Is he going to overtake Phil Foden? Because he's got the potential. I remember meeting Pep Guardiola. Bing! Best mates for life. Me and Pep. Like that. Me and Pep. Go way back. Me and Pep, we do. Best mates forever. But I remember speaking to him when I met him, and this was a few years back, and his point was about Phil Foden and how he was the shining light out of the academy because Rico Lewis at the time was probably 15, 16 years old. And the one thing he said about Phil Foden is how his potential is, the ceiling's, where is it? I'm not sure he can see it. He has no ceiling. He can go as far as he wants to go in the game. The one aspect of his game was composure. He's just so frantic. He needs to calm down in certain areas of the game. But now I'd love to speak to Pep again about Rico Lewis. And we talk about versatility a lot with players now and how they are integrated into a Pep Guardiola system. Namely because every player has to do multiple roles throughout the course of the season. There are only a few players that don't. Obviously, the goalkeepers, Haaland. I mean, even Alvarez, he can drop into a number 10. If we see him play out, we've seen him play out wide maybe once. I think in the Community Shield last season against Liverpool, he came on the right wing. So he can play in more positions. Only really Haaland is sticks up top, and there's nowhere else for Erling Haaland. Grealish can play inside, but I've only ever really seen Pep play him on the left. Everyone else has to move around and accept they have multiple roles to do. Phil Foden can definitely do that. We've seen him play on both wide positions. We've even seen him play as a false nine. I think his future is in the middle of the park, playing in attacking midfield, in that De Bruyne and the Gundogan role and the box that we're playing at the minute in the middle of the pitch. He's the front two, either one of those front two in the box. I think he can do that. But then you look at the likes of Rico Lewis, who when he first made his debut, Bournemouth last season, so that's how long we're talking. Feels like he's been here for years. The way he plays feels like he's been here for years. Like, it's incredible what this guy's doing so quickly. And that's another point in Phil Foden. Pep must trust him way more than Phil Foden when he was that same age, because all the talk was about Phil Foden being loaned out. And that's obviously Pep was like, no, I'm keeping him. But he keeps him controlled, keeps him under his wing, and makes sure he's looked after and very slowly beds him in. Rico Lewis is thrown right into the deep end. He plays in big games, Rico Lewis. And Pep obviously trusts him to do that. And I think that's because he's more of a complete player. There's no doubting that going forward, Phil Foden is infinitely better than Rico Lewis in that particular role, but you can't ask Phil Foden to defend like Rico Lewis can, play in defensive midfield, play right back, play left back, and yesterday against Bayern Munich we saw him playing in attacking midfield and doing an immense job of it, making Upamecano look like a child. He bodied him. He just bodied him at one point, and he's like this big. Rico Lewis is tiny. Lima as well. Lima. Can't remember how to pronounce his name. Lima, I think it is. The German centre midfielder for Bayern Munich. Good player. He got bodied. Edge of the area, a bit rash from Rico Lewis because he actually gave away a free kick, but it was on the edge of the area. The ball's going up in the air, and Lima actually wins the header, but Rico doesn't give a shit. He just smashes him like that. He doesn't care. Does not care. And that's what we talk about. We heard Pep Guardiola a couple of years ago against Spurs in the documentary with City, and he called City players soft. He said, you're all playing soft. And ever since then, he's gone for a very strong team in terms of the defence. You look at how he's built the back four. They're all big guys now. Big, strong, powerful. That Premier League motto of, you've got to be strong to play in the Premier League. Pep's actually going with that. And he may well agree with it. Yeah, maybe you do. Doesn't mean you can't play ball. Doesn't mean you can't play football just because you're big, And I mean, the back line is very, very strong. Now, Phil Foden, he's not weak. But he's not tenacious. He's not like, compared to Rico Lewis, he's a warrior. He will throw his head in where it hurts. He does not care. And I like that about Rico Lewis. And in terms of versatility, yes, I think Pep believes in him more, and he demands more of Rico Lewis and gives him more opportunities than Phil Foden when he was the same age. there's no doubt, and I'm not trying to pit them against each other and negatively and make Foden sound like a bad player. That's not the intention of what my point is. My point is to highlight the strengths of Rico Lewis rather than the weaknesses of Phil Foden, because it's incredible what the growth spurt that we've seen here. He's got to keep it going, because in this small one season is obviously, trophy-wise, there are very few 18-year-olds that win the treble. You know, in terms of Champions League last season, the youngest ever goal scorer in the Champions League against Sevilla. This is the level we're talking about. In the same game, he receives racism, brushes it off like it doesn't matter. It does matter. It absolutely matters. Of course it does. But he plays and scores, and that's the best way to do your talking and answer those arseholes that are talking out nonsense and giving him racial abuse. Smash one in against them and give it that. Stick that in the back of the fucking net. Take that. Love that. That's what I'm talking about. Rico Lewis is on his way to being an absolute superstar. And I remember what Pep said after that particular game. I've got it here, actually. He said, "We don't give presents here. He had to earn it. Sometimes you think we'll have to buy fullbacks, knowing how expensive it is. But we can give someone from the academy a chance. That's the dream. It is good for the economy of the club, and we can rely on him. I am very pleased with the way they are working." And there you go. All the panic so far this season is in this transfer window is players going out, players coming in. Could that same ideology be applied to the likes of Oscar Bob and Rico Lewis? And obviously is applied to Rico Lewis. So there may well be other players that follow in the footsteps, and it's incredible. It really, really is, because we're looking at Phil Foden. He set the example in terms of being able to be good enough, a local lad, you're good enough to make it into the first team. Rico Lewis, not far behind. Cole Palmer, question marks about him, because where was he yesterday? Where was Cole Palmer yesterday? He was meant to be on the bench, but I didn't see him, didn't get a single minute. So worried for his future now, considering he didn't get a single minute yesterday. That was worrying. But I think Rico Lewis here, and the whole point of the video really is to highlight the fact that he's getting compensated for everything I've just said. He's getting the 5-year contract with a potential year add-on, so potentially 6 years and 5 times salary increase. Now that sounds like, whoa, 5 times. That's going to put him on £25,000 a week, which in comparison, he's 18. You have to factor in 18-year-old age. You have to factor that in, and £25,000 for an 18-year-old is ridiculous amounts of money. Of course it is. You compare him to the other players. Some might say age doesn't matter. You deserve how good you are. You deserve the amount of money compared to how good you are. I personally think 25,000 is about right. I think that sounds right. Keeps his head on the ground, gives him plenty of monetary goals to still look up at and say, I'm not earning as much as those players. I've got to prove myself to get on that wage. I doubt he's even playing for the wage. Very few players at City are playing for the wage. You look at Bernardo Silva, for example. He's on less than so many players that he should be on, equal or more than. He's not kicking up a fuss. You know what I mean? He's just playing his heart out, giving it 100% on the pitch. So I love that about Rico Lewis, and as well as many other players. But yeah, the deal fully deserved. Give it 2-3 years when he's 20, 21 years old, because Phil Foden's 23 right now. Phil Foden's 23 years old, so 5 years younger than Phil Foden. And it'll look at the gap. 5 years in football is like almost half a career. Almost half a career, isn't it, at that age? And playing at this level at 18 is more than what Phil Foden was doing at 18. It's more. He was integrated a lot slower, Foden. Not like this. Rico Lewis is being trusted with immense potential as well. I'm so excited to see what Rico Lewis, and I didn't give him justice in my match reaction yesterday against Bayern Munich. I went over it. I said how well he played. I gave him man of the match. I just don't think I went into it enough. I've looked it back. I've watched the game back. I watched his highlights. It was just incredible. It was incredible to watch him. Now the dust has settled, you take a sit back, you remove your emotion from the game and you look at it and you study who played well, who didn't play well. And Rico Lewis was just absolutely immense. And I said that, I don't think I said it enough. I think it needs to be said louder. People need to hear it more, how good this player actually is. But into other news, Nathan Ake, new deal on the cards. It's not that new, but more along the sides of new contracts being offered to players, which is great news. You tie these players down. Rico Lewis, Nathan Ake, you tie them down. It's not been finalised yet, but it's apparently round the corner. He too he's currently on £90,000 a week. So what do you think he should be on? Considering Emerick Laporte, who's about to leave, very likely by the sounds of it, which is sad. Hopefully, if he does, it's presumably because Gvardiol's come in with no news on that yet, no developments on that scenario. he's got to at least be on 120, Nathan Ake, considering Laporte is on 120. For me, 125. You could go that high for Ake. He's worth it. He's worth it. The injury that he picked up yesterday is apparently not as bad as first feared, which is good. Apparently, it was just a tightening of the muscle. Pep said it's okay. Didn't want to risk it because Nathan Ake does have a history of picking up injuries, and they're usually not great as well. They're 3 or 4 weeks, sometimes. So Nathan Ake will be vital for us. In that first 28 minutes against Bayern, he put block after block after block. Nothing was getting past him. And then he went off injured. And in fairness to Akanji, he came on and did an equally good job. It was just Ake was just... A lot of questions were asked of Ake, and he answered them all. Every single one. But now I think after the Atletico game, Pep mentioned how he's looking forward to getting back to Manchester for 1 week to prepare for that final, he called it, against Arsenal in the Community Shield. Now, some of you might take it more seriously than others. I personally take it very seriously. Jack Grealish, he's also commented on it recently, saying that he's desperate to win it. It's the one thing he hasn't won. He's been here for 3 years and been in 2 of the finals and lost them both, Leicester and Liverpool. So hopefully he can get one this time round against Arsenal. It's not the end of the world if we don't win it. It's just that little sends a message, sends a statement that I think if we were to win it, if Arsenal were to win it, I don't think it stands as big a statement as it would do as if we were to win it. Because I think if Arsenal were to win it, it wouldn't hurt us that much. Because we've proven that we can lose that game, the curtain raiser, and go and win trophy after trophy in that same season. Whereas if Arsenal played against us, lost, those emotional bottle jobs will be feeling hurt even more hurt if they went and lost to us. Going into a season where they're already commenting about how they plan to beat us and they've lost their first chance at sticking the knife in early and they lose. Fantastic it will be. But talking about that first week, I had a little thought about the pre-seasons. If you look at Arsenal's pre-season, United's pre-season, Chelsea's pre-season, they are playing so many more games than us. And I personally think that's because of Pep's belief in his own squad. We can field 2 11-a-side teams of the highest quality and mix them up, put some of the best players in that team, Team A, and put some of the best players in Team B in training and play against each other. And you're more often than not going to get a better test against our own players than we will do against, if we went and played Tranmere or Yeovil and pointless exercises like that where we're going to wipe the floor with them, and it's no point in that at all. This in Tokyo that we're looking at, Bayern, big test. I think Atletico's a big test, Yokohama. The whole thing is commercial, though. It's not really about fitness, and Pep himself has sort of hinted at the idea that when he gets back to Manchester, he can train better. Everyone's in their home lives, getting back to, normality of what their everyday normality and what they're going to be living throughout the season. Going to Japan, it's just a different environment and different occasions and things like that. So I think a pre-season makes sense. Just stick with us. I don't see tests against other teams because our own squad can test us more than anyone else's. So that's the best way to train. And Pep Guardiola and his implementation of his tactics is best done on the training pitch, not against Bayern Munich. Yeah, he'll see things and he will learn things, or Atletico Madrid. He will see the odd thing, but he'll be able to stop the game in training and explain what you're doing wrong. Stop-start nature of training. It's perfect for Pep Guardiola. That's how they learn. That's why we're winning what we're winning, because we train with Pep. And on the pitch, 90 minutes, it's for the fans, really. It's for the money. It's for getting everyone and spreading the Manchester City Football Club across the globe. So that week before the Arsenal game is going to be more valuable to the whole squad compared to this previous week in Tokyo. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to the Arsenal game. But Blues, get in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts on my comparison, not versus against each other, of Rico Lewis against Phil Foden. I mean, there's no doubt Phil Foden's an absolute class act and he's on his way to being a world-class player. But Rico Lewis, he's rapidly catching him up and doing it in a quicker and more versatile approach as well. Nathan Ake, new deal, fully deserved. Not really much to talk about there. Just, spot on. Nathan Ake deserves a new deal, and good news for the injury as well. But comments in the comment sections below, Blues. Like and subscribe. Typical City is the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.
This is typical.